Okay. I think we're live. Hold on. Let me check if we're live. Give me one sec. Okay. Give me one sec. We are live. Alright.
Very cool.
Let me go ahead and get it up for the nice, beautiful people. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and promote it into some other stuff I'm in real quick. Give me one sec.
John Parts.
Okay, give me one sec. I'm gonna promote it. Some stuff. But yeah, hey guys, welcome back. This is my first time I think going live on this channel actually. This is the first time I've done a live stream ever and like since I want to say like
2 billion years.
V3 was the last time I did it. So yeah, what's going on, y'all? We are gonna be doing I'm here with Andrew aka the voice of Mike.
I am not Russian, actually. I am actually retarded.
Shut the fuck up. Alright, and today we were doing this like late last night. We were doing some geography. We were kind of talking about the 50 states and saying like where they should be, like which ones are like Midwest, what is North, what is South, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
I guess I'll say straight up that I'm from the Midwest. That's where I'm from.
he's the Midwest boy.
I'm the Midwestern, and my friend right here, he is a Southern,
Yes, sir. Yeehaw.
except without the Confederate.
How do you know?
Anyway, um, so we're kind of doing this. We're doing this on mapchart.net. So we're gonna go ahead and look at the states. We're actually gonna be going from east to west, doing all of them. So for starters, I think like this one should be a no-brainer. That New England is Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. I feel like that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think out of any region, that's the one most people agree on. Like, there is no disagreement whatsoever that that's New England.
Like that is New England. I mean, there's a reason why we call it New England.
Yeah,
It's because all those states are super small and it's easily just one place. So I think that's a no-brainer. Like everyone knows what it is. It's Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island.
yeah.
And after that, we got the Northeast. So I'll go ahead and
You know what I hear people call that area?
what?
I hear people generally call that area like the Atlantic area.
What
Like, this is
New York and like. The Northeast.
Yeah, like in mostly like the coastal parts of it, but I do hear like that area largely referring like as like the mid Atlantic or just regular like Atlantic. Similar to how like on the West Coast you have like the Pacific region. Like the Northeast is more like the Atlantic region
Atlantic
in a way.
region. And I think for states like that, you would have like your New York, your Pennsylvania, and your New Jersey. Now, it's weird. You know what people like to say? People like to say Maryland and Delaware or more southern. I don't think they're southern at all.
Honestly, when I think of them, I think of more as like either maritime or part of New England than I do any other region.
Also, hey Matt, what's up? We're getting to South Carolina. I know we're doing the Northwest right now. I mean, not Northwest, Northeast. But
Yeah,
no, I mean, I think that too, and I think like most people that like, I mean, that are in Delaware are from like New Jersey, like Pennsylvania. I
yeah,
really don't believe the South starts until like West Virginia and Virginia.
yeah. I think the South starts in Virginia. Everything above it is like its own category.
Yeah, same with West Virginia too. That's also southern
Yeah,
as well. No, I would say for the Northeast, you have your New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware.
yeah. When I say Virginia, I mean like how Virginia used to be when they were together before the separation,
Yeah, before
because
they
that
said,
was like the original Southern state.
yeah, I mean, it was the home of the Confederates at one point.
Yeah,
So I think for the South, well, this is the more southeast. I think that's West Virginia, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Those are like all southern states right there.
yeah.
Now,
Do you think we should? Do you think there's a separation between Deep South and like maybe Upper South?
I don't.
Because I know that's the difference some people make is like there's like two parts of the South. There's like the more upper part of the South, closer like mostly like the East Coast southern states, and then there's like the Deep South where like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia are.
It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I could see you make that argument with like Virginia and West Virginia, but I feel like like the Carolinas and all that. I would say the Carolinas are pretty like deep south.
I think that's fair.
Maybe not North Carolina, but definitely like South Carolina and like all that. Well, I even feel like North can be deep in some ways.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I just don't know if I would associate them with as like like as like the deepest part of the South. They're definitely like gray area in that region.
Yeah, but I would definitely say they're southern. Like the people you'll meet and like the accents, like everyone there usually has like a
Yeah,
southern accent. But
yeah.
now this is where it starts to get interesting. Should we go to DC real quick before we talk about the next topic? Where are we putting like DC?
I would have DC just be an extension of like the Atlantic region,
That's what I was kind of
just
thinking.
because I think there is like a bit of a because you have Philadelphia, you have New York City, you have Boston, and then you have DC, all relatively close to each other,
I agree.
and those are like some of the biggest and arguably most important historical cities of America.
And I have done some talks with some people today from different parts of the country to see where they're on, but we'll get to that in a bit. You know something I want to talk about because I feel like this is where states start to get more complicated.
What do you think?
Louisiana and Florida. I want to start with Louisiana first because Louisiana is such a weird state. Because if you go to like anywhere in Louisiana, like it's pretty much it's like what you expect from a southeastern state. Southern accent,
Oh yeah,
more rural areas, and a lot of like, like southern culture, like drinking sweet tea and stuff like that. But
yeah,
where Louisiana is strange is where you get more to the boot part of the state, like the more like edge of the boot where like New Orleans and stuff is. New Orleans is so much more different than like the rest of the state.
yeah. I mean, it's the original like French part of like the country.
Like it is the
That's where it's
true
the most
Yeah,
French
it is
of
the true
anywhere in the U.S.
French territory. Like I would like the two biggest French areas are definitely New Orleans or that part of Louisiana, and maybe like one or two New England states, and that's about it.
Yeah, like I mean, obviously outside of America, the biggest would be like Quebec, but within America, it really is like Louisiana and maybe some parts of.
Of New England because of like Quebec right there. So
Yeah,
this might be weird. So this website allows you to separate states. Do you think we should like separate Louisiana from like the west of Louisiana, just like the boot of Louisiana?
yeah, I think it's more fitting as of
Yeah.
right now
I
because
feel
I think it is very distinct.
I feel like we should put like west or just like the uh boot part of just like the southeast states, but like the actual tip of the boot, I feel like it's such a new unique thing. I think we'll leave it at like its own thing for now, but it's just such an
Yeah,
interesting thing. So I'm gonna leave that as like its own thing. But honestly, you know what state is also like that?
Florida.
Florida. Florida's a weird one too because
Florida's interesting because I would say it wasn't that long ago that you can consider as like a purely southern region. But I think definitely because of places like Miami, Orlando, and just all the tourists, not to mention a bunch of like Latin America and Caribbean immigration, it has made like the southern part of the country very different than like the northern part of it.
I think so too. Because I would say like the northern part of Florida is basically the same as something like Alabama, Georgia, or like
Yeah,
the Carolinas.
Jacksonville area is very like still southern.
Southern. But once you get to like the central to southern, like Orlando, Tampa, and like Miami, it is so weird. Like I feel like that's not hardly even like the rest of the state. So I think once again
Yeah,
that might need to be like its own category as well, just like southern Florida.
yeah. I think South Florida is a good way to like separate it
And like
because
you
I
said
think that at that point,
with immigration too, like it's mostly like a Cuban area, especially
yeah,
like Miami. But
yeah. I think that's where a bit of a divide should be at.
now this next one is obviously my turn. I feel like this is gonna be easier one. This is the Midwest.
Midwest.
So you got your Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, and Minnesota. I think we can all confirm like those are all Midwest states right there.
Yeah.
Now this is a weird one because originally I used to always think this one is a Southern state, but I've actually been talking with someone who's from Missouri and they think otherwise. Do you think Missouri is Midwest or Southeast?
Um, it's hard to say because I honestly don't know much. When I think of just by the name alone, I think more southern of the state. But I can see there definitely being like more from like a cultural standpoint. It's more Midwestern. It's hard for me to like say though because I
Also,
haven't
keep in
actually
mind
been there.
for people who are watching this, we are ranking this by two things. We're ranking it by actual like geography, like stuff like where it is, obviously. Also, sometimes we
Yeah,
can rank it on natural disasters. Like we'll get to that one in a little bit with like hurricanes or like
Central.
central like tornadoes and all that. And
Yeah.
politics, that's not really one we're not really getting into on
Politics
this.
is the one we were like. That's like the last divider I feel because I
Yeah,
think it's
that's
mainly geography and
Yeah,
culture.
because I mean, if you've got into politics, I mean, if that was the case, swing states, the Midwest would be a cluster if that was the case.
Yeah,
But no, that's why we're not really doing politics. Like, it's mostly based on the geography itself and the culture of the people.
yeah.
So, like, it's weird. Like I said, I've talked to an actual Missouri person. He says it's more Midwest just based on culture. I asked him about. He says honestly, it feels more like an Iowa than like maybe like something like an Arkansas.
I can see them being like a separate area. To be honest,
Yeah.
like I mean not separate area. I mean like as part of the Midwest, separate from like the South. I just don't know enough about like the state as a whole and its history to say what where specifically. But if your friend who lives there does believe it to be more Midwest, I can see my opinion change on that.
Yeah, because I always thought it was more southeast, like in Arkansas, but it is kind of, I could see it being like also like in Iowa.
Yeah.
And I guess this is another one. This is one a lot of people, because I mean, even like the actual like geographers think this is Midwest. Where are we putting like the Dakotas?
Mm, I was just thinking that, and I think this, I think you could say maybe you can split them in half because I think with the thing you can split them between like the eastern and western part. I think maybe you can argue the eastern part of the Dakotas and the western part of Dakotas are like separate areas.
Would you like maybe say
Maybe
like Eastern Dakotas are like more Midwest, but like because also then because I think we should get this out of the way too. We also kind of created this one area we call this Central America. This is Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. I mean, most people
this is
consider
like this is what I would call like the Great Plains area. And I also think this is the area where like you start to get into like the western part. This is like the area that introduces to you to like the western part of America. You know, like especially from like a historical standpoint, where like this is where the Wild West began and eventually ends at the West Coast.
yeah, and another reason is also like how we brought up like natural disasters and all that. You know what all
Yeah,
three of these states have in common with is
tornadoes.
tornadoes.
Like I think they even call this place like Tornado Alley. You know, like this is where most of like the tornadoes in the country can be found at.
So I'm actually gonna look at tornado. I want to look at the Dakotas and see. I feel like that could also help me out, like where that would be.
Yeah,
Tornado levels by state. I'm gonna look up a picture because maybe that can help out. I kind of want to see. Okay, no, they're moderate. The Dakotas don't really have tornadoes.
yeah. Again, like if you look up Tornado Alley, for instance, is very much like part of like the central states.
Yeah, the states that have more tornadoes are Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma.
I mean, there's a reason why there was like it was a tornado in like the Wizard of Oz that took Dorothy away
And what state
while
was
she
she
lived in
from?
Kansas.
Kansas, right.
Yeah, like even even back then, that's always been a well-known thing about that area of the country. I think because of that, and because of like similar like cultural factors and stuff, and just geography, I think this like the central states should be like their own region. I think I think it's distinct enough from geography and even a bit by culture to say like it's generally its own thing separate from all the others.
So where are we? So where are we putting the? Where do you want to
What do
put
you think?
other Dakotas? I'm trying to think.
I would I would split the Dakotas in half from the mountain region in like the Midwest region.
So should we
Though
spread it up?
yes, though I do think there is something I do want to talk to you about the Midwest, and I do hear some people argue that like the upper part of like the Midwest, specifically like the Minnesota and Wisconsin type of area, is a lot more distinct than like the other parts of the Midwest. Like there's some parts of it that makes it its own separate region, if you get what I mean.
So do you want to break up the Dakotas then? So
Yeah, I'll break up the Dakotas
okay. So you want to break it up from mountain? Because I guess should we also talk about the mountain states as well?
if you want to get to that.
Yeah.
I think the most like solid. I think Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. I mean, those are guaranteed like mountain
Mountain.
states.
You know what's weird? I've actually heard people say that like Idaho should be like in the same category as Washington and Oregon. I don't think so, honestly. I don't think it really is.
Honestly, I think. I mean, this is what I personally believe, but I think you should honestly split like Washington and Oregon in half from like the east and from like the West Coast area to like the other area from like the
Like
eastern
mountain
area.
area?
Yeah, because I think Eastern Washington and Oregon are more similar to like the mountain
Like
areas than they are to
Idaho.
like, yeah,
I
they're
agree.
more closer to Idaho than like the West Coast.
I agree because of, I mean, most of the city and all that in Washington and Oregon, it's all in the west, like Portland, Seattle.
Yeah,
So I feel like we can do that. I feel like Utah is obviously also just a no-brainer mountain. Like that's always been like I would say more
yeah.
mountain. Now, what about Colorado?
Colorado's interesting. It's a very mountainous area, but like I feel like it's hard to describe Colorado. It's almost unique in its own way
I guess should we also
compared to like
should we go ahead and also get the Southwest as well? But go on about Colorado real quick.
I don't know. Colorado is weird. It almost when I think Colorado, I almost think of it more as like Midwestern in a way. To be honest,
You think it more what?
I think it's almost more like a Midwestern state stuck in the middle of like the mountain states. You know what I mean?
Oh, like culture-wise or something?
Cold, yeah. I think mainly from like culture wise,
You
because
you think
obviously geography wise, it's part of like the Rocky Mountainous area.
it's more like a Utah, Wyoming, but culture it's
Yeah,
more like you would expect something from like Michigan or like Ohio or Wisconsin.
yeah,
But I mean, if we're going by technicality, it is still like a mountain state by technicality, just because it is like geography
yeah.
wise, it is like a mountain place. Oh, did not mean to put that as south.
I mean that's also why I almost consider Utah as its own unique thing, just because of the Mormon influence there, which is like makes it very distinct in its own way as well. Even with obviously the geography being like very much part of like the mountain rocky area.
Also, my off topic, my girlfriend is watching the stream. You know what she said?
What?
She's been to Colorado. She says Colorado is nothing but corn and dirt.
Yeah, that's fair. Colorado is weird because when I first think of Colorado, my immediate thoughts go to like Denver, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't honestly know much about like the other areas of the state.
That's why I think should we just like leave like Utah and Colorado like as mountain maybe, I guess.
We can include them as mountain,
Yeah. And
but it's just
I think with Washington and Oregon, we'll leave that as like mountain like the east side of it.
yeah. We'll split those up and have them be like their own
Yeah.
separate parts. But like
Y-
I think in general, you can call this like the mountain
You
area.
know another state I think we needed to also split up?
What?
Nevada.
Cali? Oh, Nevada
Because
too.
Nevada's a weird one because if you go to like northern Nevada, it is all like mountain. Like if you go to like
Yeah,
Carson City, it's more like an Idaho, a Utah. Actually, you know what's weird? You know like how Utah is known? That's like the Mormon state, right?
yeah.
The second most Mormons is actually Nevada. Funny enough, that's the second largest amount of Mormons.
I'm not surprised.
And
I
I
mean,
feel
most people will like
yeah,
call it that area like the Mormon Belt.
yeah. But here's the thing what makes Nevada weird, because if you go to all of Nevada, it's basically what you would expect from a mountain state. But when you go to Clark County, aka what is
Las
it?
Vegas.
Las Vegas, it's like
That's where it becomes almost like an entirely different part of the state.
yeah. But I think as of right now, I think we should put Nevada like or just like the Vegas side, like Clark County. I think that's a Southwest, I would say. I feel
Yeah,
like when I think of Vegas, I think of like Arizona and New Mexico, which also we might as well just put those in there right now.
yeah.
And also my girlfriend just messaged me. Her dad used to live in Denver, and she says it's very much a mountain area. But culture is different
Mm,
too.
yeah,
Well, the apparently culture has changed a lot. Now, Colorado actually used to be more in line because I've talked to someone from Colorado and stuff before too. It used to be more in line with how like most mountain states would be. It wasn't until like the 21st century that's where culture kind of like changed a lot.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised. I'm not surprised. It's mostly like a recent thing
It's
that's
kind of like
changed
how
the state.
Virginia's culture went from being more of a southern culture to like more like a northeast, even though it's still technically a southern state.
Yeah, I mean the same can also be said about Florida, but just more extreme for them.
Yeah. And I guess we should talk about your state in particular, Texas, because Texas is a weird one.
Honestly, I mean, I feel like an argument be had that like there's almost three separate regions of Texas. There's like part of it that's part of like that's almost like the central area. There's part of it that's like the south, and there's part of it like the southeast.
Like the
But
top,
honestly,
go on.
I would consider like Texas as a whole as its own unique thing, personally speaking.
Because Texas is such a hard one to say. Because I've talked to a couple people today about it. Because when you go to like the big thump on top of Texas, I would say that's more in line with like Oklahoma, right?
Yeah,
But let's say we go more
it,
to like where Houston is, which is like at the edge of the east. It's more like a
that's more southern.
southern east, right? But let's say you
But
go
then
to
you go to like El
El
Paso,
Paso, it's
and
more
it's
like
more
New
like
Mexico.
yeah, it's more southwest.
It's such a weird state, and I've asked people, like many people, on what they think it is. My dad says Southwest. My mom also says Southwest, but I even hear people say, like, I've heard people say it's Southeast, but then I also hear people that say, honestly, it's just South. That's the way to describe it.
Yeah, I just think for me, honestly, there's so much history and different geography all in this one state to the point where I feel like it should just be its own.
Yeah, so I feel like Texas is should just be like the definition of South.
Because the thing about Texas too is like it was also originally its own country back before it got annexed. Like for a decade, it ran itself as its own republic. So even from like it's down to its history, it's always been its own thing as a whole.
So that's why
To even up to annexation.
should we just like make it its own place, just like call it South, pretty much?
Honestly, I would just call it Texas, just the
Texas.
Texas region.
Okay. I think we can
Because
do that.
unless you can because it's either that or you have to be able to like split it up into like three separate regions.
Yeah, which unfortunately this website you can only split it up into two. I feel like if there was like a third option where you could do one, I feel like you could break up Texas into like three options. So like the north central part,
Yeah,
the southeast part, and like the west with like El Paso over here.
yeah.
Which I guess now I feel like this is the last state we should break up, but I think California also needs to be broken up because Northern California is so much more different from Southern California.
Southern California is much more in line with like the
Pacific.
Arizona, like yeah,
Yeah, like Northern California is definitely like Pacific, which speaking of
oh yeah,
Pacific, that would be states like Northern California, West Washington, like West Oregon.
yeah. The just in general, the West, like the Pacific West Coast. Yeah,
Yeah, and those have a lot of plains and stuff there too, especially
yeah.
like Northern California.
It's also very like this is like the I think they call it Cascadia region.
Yeah.
Like that whole area is basically right there as like its own geography region of the country.
You know what's actually kind of funny about Northern California?
What?
I show a lot of people pictures of Northern California. You know what they always get it mixed up with, which I find interesting?
What?
The Central and the Midwest.
Yeah,
That
I
is,
can see that.
a lot of people say it's because of the plains and all that there, like something like you would find in like Illinois or like Iowa.
Yeah,
No, Northern California
it's
is definitely much different. Now, Southern California, were like Los Angeles and like, what is
oh
it?
yeah,
LA and San Diego, that is full on Southwest right there.
yeah,
I mean, not only just because of the culture, because I mean, obviously that's where all the Hispanics live, is usually in
yeah,
it. I would say it's more in line with like Arizona and New Mexico.
yeah. It's very much like I argue like from from Las Vegas to LA to Phoenix, that's like almost the biggest like representation of like the Southwest.
Yeah, I mean, same with New Mexico, I would say as well. Like
Yeah,
Like Santa Fe.
yeah. I think those are all like the big cities of like the Southwest of the country.
and that's why I'd kind of put them where they at or right there is
Yeah,
that. And Alaska and Hawaii, those can just be their own areas. Those are not even part of like the
those
regular.
are
What do you call it
yeah
in the United States? What do you call
continental.
the continental United States? Like
Yeah,
those are really just like their own territories. Like
I
if
mean
Port
Alaska's like literally part of the North Pole, and Hawaii is like this tropical island
Yeah, and
paradise. You know,
if
it's like
Puerto Rico were to become a state, it would probably be the exact same thing.
yeah, Puerto Rico would also be its own unique area.
But I know it's just such a hard list. I feel like the hardest states to talk about are definitely like Texas and all that. Because originally, when we did, yes, last night me and him privately did one. We thought Texas would be like more like West Texas would be like Southwest, and then east of Texas would be like Southeast. But then you also look at the northern part, that's way more like Central.
Yeah.
Because also they get a lot of tornadoes too. Like when you go on the big thump where Texas is, like the big top thump, it
Oh yeah.
actually is very much like Oklahoma.
Oh yeah. It's from a geography standpoint, it's very much more like Oklahoma than it is like the southern part of
And
Texas.
I would even say culture, it's obviously very similar.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's arguably the more western part because like the west okay, the west southwest part of Texas where El Paso is very Hispanic. The south east is very southern, and then like the upper central area is very like western, but like you know what I mean, like wild west western.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you expect from like Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska.
Yeah, that's cowboy territory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, which I do think it's funny that everyone likes to say like Texas is like the yeehaw cowboy. I would say something like Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. That's actually where the Cowboys like started.
Yeah, like that's more closer to be honest.
Yeah, because like Kansas is full on just like Wild West right there.
Yeah,
But I mean, Colorado also used to be pretty Wild West too. But obviously, the culture of like Colorado has changed so much like for the past like 20 years.
yeah. That's again, Colorado is weird just because of how much has changed in recent times.
Yeah, because like I said, I knew
Uh,
some like obviously my girlfriend's dad, he was born and raised in Colorado. If you look at Colorado like 40, 50 years ago, it is nothing like how it is today. Like
yeah,
culture, like back then, the culture used to be way more like a Utah, but it's definitely more in line with like what you expect. Like you said, like Midwestern culture kind of gives vibes of now.
yeah,
Yeah. But I would say for the easiest states to go by, honestly, I think the easiest ones were like the Midwest and like New England. I mean, New England is like the only like confirmed like region.
yeah. That one, there's like no debate
Yeah.
for like part of it.
But
Then you have like Atlantic.
Atlantic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this is kind of going off topic, but obviously I've lived in like two states. People ask me like, Braylon, what would you say you're more of? I definitely would say I'm still like more Michigander, like Midwestern easily.
Oh yeah.
Like if I had to say to people what I am more in line, I would say I'm like 85% Michigander and like maybe 15% Texan.
Yeah.
Like I would say the only things I get from Texas is maybe some of my vocabulary, like y'all or howdy and all that, but that's about it.
Yeah. It's very. You have a bit of Texan in you after all the years you spent here, but I definitely think your heart lays mostly in the Midwest.
Midwest. Because I mean, like I said, I say pop. You guys all call it soda like everyone else. Like we call it pop. That's a Midwestern thing. I always talk
Ooh,
about I always talk about snow and all that. Like I am definitely like full on Midwest. And the
your
thing with
sports teams are still missing Midwest.
also same with the sports teams too. Like when I'm down in Texas, you will never see me wearing like Astros or Texans stuff. I'm full out wearing like my Detroit Lions and Tigers stuff.
Honestly, even if I were to move out of Texas, I would still be repping like Texans and Astros gear.
It'd basically be like how I am when I go to Texas. I'm just rocking out like my University of Michigan
I also
stuff.
like the Rockets. I think the Rockets are also cool.
Oh yeah, you are into basketball. I don't have any Pistons stuff, so I might have to get some
Mm,
Piston stuff because that's our basketball
yeah.
team. And also,
Houston teams are actually the best. I'm just being honest.
oh yeah, well I mean at least you're choosing Houston over Dallas. Dallas is,
I hate Dallas. Nah.
you hate
I'm,
Dallas. I mean
I don't know if I don't know if I hate it, but
that's
like,
something I've known about you guys in Houston is you guys just hate Dallas.
yeah, I like
I mean,
Dallas, man.
granted, we're kind of like that too. If you ask any Michiganer, we hate Ohio. Like, I freaking hate Ohio, dude. I hate it.
But you're not up with that Ohio Riz. I
No,
can
I like.
see it.
I'm so glad Gen Alpha memes on Ohio because honestly, they deserve it. For
Yeah,
for any Ohio person watching this, I am not sorry. I'm gonna be straight up. I'm not sorry.
don't worry, you don't need to. I don't think many people like Ohio, to be honest.
No, you guys are just like West Michigan, honestly.
Okay, well that's a bit.
Like Cleveland is like just full on worse than Detroit.
Yeah,
Anyway, I think that's a pretty
yeah.
good map though.
I think this is pretty solid. I would have my own personal like diverges, but overall, I think this is about as close as you can get.
I'm gonna go ahead and pull up in the right hand corner all the states we did because we do that is like just put up like all the colors and like what they are. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. South, east. Also, you know another thing that also makes me very Michigan.
What?
Just the way I talk in the music I'm into, cause like country music, I'm sorry, I can't get down with country music.
Really?
I'm not a country fan.
Do you like rap more than country?
Yes.
You're so okay.
You see, you don't like where the Midwestern is coming from? Okay, well, here's
Yeah,
the thing. Country, I think there's some good country music out there, but I think I would rather listen to something like NMM or Biggie Smalls over than like country music.
like look, I get it. I'm just gonna say, yeah, country music, like the worst of country music can be very generic, but I think the worst of rap music is terrible.
I
Like,
mean, that is true because you do have like your Drakes and all that, but Drake is not even American. Get him out of here. That dude's like, he's a pedophile
he's
Canadian.
Canadian, bro. I'm surprised the guy isn't from Quebec.
Also,
Screw that guy.
what should we call the green area? Should we call that Central? What did you call it? Like the tornado nickname?
Oh, in Tornado Alley.
Yeah, tornado. Let's call it Tornado Alley, honestly. Tornado
I
Alley.
mean, I'll call it Central, but I think you can call it Tornado Alley.
Yeah, I'll call it Tornado Alley just for simplicity. Mountain,
It's tornado country.
Southwest, Texan. What else we got? Texan, and then that's Pacific. I will say though, there is, even though I'm a Michigan person, you know like how you guys hate Dallas?
Yeah.
There is one city in Michigan I do not like though.
Which
It
one?
goes by the name Lansing. It is our capital. I do not like Lansing.
You don't like the capital?
Yeah, well, also it's also part of sports rivalries too, because you gotta know we got
Hmm.
two colleges in Michigan. We got the University of Michigan, which obviously that's what I lean to, because that's like Ann Arbor
Yeah.
and Detroit. Well, Lansing has Michigan State, and I can't I can't stand Michigan State.
You don't, you don't like Michigan State?
It's
What's
how
wrong with it?
it's how Houston people view Dallas.
Hmm. Damn, that sounds pretty trashy.
Yeah, and also honestly, Lansing is just like honestly like the most boring of the three major cities. Like our three major cities in
Does
Michigan.
Lansing at least have like its own Fort Worth area, or is it just like
I mean, I
straight
don't.
up?
The suburbs are alright, but I feel like out of the three, honestly, the three cities, big cities in Michigan, honestly, I think Lansing's my least favorite. I think
I think that's fair.
Grand Rapids is the best one.
Like, is Grand Rapids like your San Antonio?
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's our San Antonio.
I see.
Honestly, I could even
That's
say
good.
it's our, even though it's not our, it's not the capital. I could say it's even like our Austin in some ways, because Grand Rapids used to be very small, but it's kind of growing, you know.
Yeah,
And
I
Austin is
can see
kind of the
that.
same way. And Detroit is Detroit, so.
Yeah.
Also, there was also Flint. I don't like Flint either. The water makes me yucky.
Yeah, yeah. What do you mean? The water there is perfectly fine.
Yeah, the water. Any Michigander who's on the stream right now, what's your guys' opinion on Flint, Michigan water? Like that is some that makes me feel below the sea. Uh,
Let me see. Honestly, I feel like if you were to drink that, your teeth would feel a little gritty. I'm not gonna
right for cream. Oh no.
lie.
But yeah,
Bro, that Flint water making my teeth feel gritty.
that Flint water. Make I'm fucking dying. This bro said that the Flint water is making my teeth gritty.
You gotta give me some of that Flint water, bro. I think I might need to try it.
uh, oh my god.
Man. Whew. Oh man.
I think that's a good way though to go ahead and wrap it up though. I would say, would
Yeah.
you say that's pretty good?
Yeah, I say that's good.
I went ahead and downloaded it, so I'll probably upload it later on my communities tab so you guys can check it out.
Yeah.
But I think that will do it for now. Anyone want to say anything else? Angie, do you want to say anything else before the stream ends?
Nah, I think I'm good.
Think you're good? All right, I think because of that, we'll end it off. If you guys want more geography videos, let me know. Maybe I'll become, like, once cinema is done, I'll become a geography channel, maybe. Who knows? Maybe that or US
Yeah,
history. Like,
I mean, both will be cool subjects.
Mr. Beat, we're watching for you.
Yeah, we're going to get you, Mr. Breast. I mean, Beat.
Mr. B okay.